Right, a very good morning to you and welcome to Legal Thursday. This is Morning Cafe. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyabingita. This conversation today is, due to public demand. Last week, part one on Thursday, we had a conversation on legally changing your name, either on the birth certificate, rectifying it, and there were so many questions on the same. And due to public demand, we have Silas Akiro, who's an advocate on the same. Akiro, welcome back.
Thank you so much once again.
Most definitely. So last time we had quite a number of callers asking on the same. How do I rectify my name on the birth certificate on the same? And even so that even before we actually engage the callers, help us understand this whole process. Because in everyone's situation, it's always a different kind of a situation. Everyone has their own story. So help us understand the genesis of where everything starts to become a problem. Because it seems as if the problem starts maybe in the hospital, maybe someone's name wasn't written correctly, for example, the wrong name was put, maybe the father's name was actually even omitted. So where does this genesis begin? Walk us through all that process of the child has been born today. So this child, let's call this child Peter, who's been born today. So walk us through all that process until one time the mother of Peter maybe wanted to maybe remove the father's biological name from there. Before we get to that, let's begin.
Thank you so much once again, Stanley, for this second phase of this discussion. Now, straight to your question. Stanley, usually we have a problem with our data entry systems. The persons who are actually capturing data into the registrar's registers. That is where the main issue always lies. Now, procedurally, the law requires, that is the Births and Deaths Registration Act, requires that a child born in the hospitals or wherever they are born are supposed to be registered within 6 months. After 6 months, it is considered late registration. So when somebody is born within the hospital, the child is given a notification. And this notification...
Immediately the child is born?
Immediately the child is born.
Okay.
Or before being discharged from the hospital. The mother is supposed to be given a notification.
Right.
Now, this birth notification is, it contains the name of the child, the mother, all the particulars that are required by law. But sometimes the mother may opt not to include the father within the birth certificate. This now calls for later family disputes. So
now on that, because I'm pretty sure even as we're going to be filling some of these questions, so is it, let's say this couple is married, should the father's name be on that certificate? Or so what are the limitations that the father's name is omitted?
Now, the law does not make it a mandatory for the father's name to appear within the birth notification or the birth certificate. However, for purposes of Article 45 of the Constitution on equal parental responsibility, when this child will now be looking for the other half of the responsibility here, it will be difficult for this child, being that the birth certificate does not contain the father's name. However, it is not mandatory. The law actually makes it optional. I made a note of that last time. I think the CS Interior came live on to the public and informed them that it is now not going to be mandatory for the father's name to be included within the birth certificate. And usually, that place remains an XX. However, because it is the mother who gives birth, it is very difficult for you to omit the mother's name from the birth certificate.
What was the reasoning behind the no mandatory thinking?
Now, I think the CS was not quite eloquent, rather clear on this, but I think the main reason is somebody's raped, guys are gone. Or there's a gang of all those ugly things that you normally see, they call them threesome or whatever. So you do not know who is the father, the actual father of this child. So what happens is that the mother is exempted, particularly from providing the name of the father when the father is unknown, or the father is to be established later.
Right.
So deadbeat parents, those who refuse, add my name at your own peril, I'm not going to take responsibility. And so the mother is actually given a leeway by law to be exempted from putting up, including the name of the father from the system.
Right, fantastic. So you've walked us through, so you've told us after 6 months, that's when you have the limitation and that period or to have the birth registration.
Exactly.
So after that, now what happens?
So after the 6 months, usually if you realize that the name you gave the child is not what is captured, or the name that you gave the child you wish to change and give the child a new name, the law requires you a leeway of one year, 6 months. So within 2 years, those amendments can be done rightly at the registrar's offices. After 2 years, then you go through the rigorous and cumbersome procedures of rectification. This is where now you'll have to get a deed poll from your lawyers, get a letter from the chief, from the local chief where you come from, not the chief of the place of your residence, the chief of where you come from. The chief who normally writes the succession letters. That is the chief's letter that is needed. You get 10 years acquaintance. If the child is young, then the acquaintance must be able to have known the parents and known the child within that period of time. So the acquaintance will also sign a declaration. And then all these 3 documents, the deed poll, the declaration by the acquaintance, we have the chief's letter, and then we go to the erroneous birth certificate, together with the IDs of the parents. They are taken to registrar of documents at the Ministry of Lands.
Right. Pause there, because there are 2 words that you've mentioned, and a number of Kenyans have had these 2 words quite oftenly, the deed poll. They've even asked the cost, and I'm pretty sure we'll be taking a look at some of this, SMSs and the kind of, what people are saying. And those 2 words, explain to us, what does deed poll mean, really?
Now, a deed poll is a legal document. Usually, it is a document within which the person who wishes to change a name. Remember, if your name is Stanley Nyarigita, and you want now to remove Nyari and then maybe put it Marigita. So that is considered in law a change of name. Okay. So you declare that my name Stanley, formerly Stanley Nyarigita, and now I'm taking a new name, Stanley Marigita. And so that is actually the content of the deed poll. Okay. And then with the declarations of the acquaintance, that is the friend who has known you for at least 10 years, together with a letter from the chief, the registrar of documents is going to ascertain the documentation here that Stanley Marigita is not running away from Stanley Nyarigita. I'm sorry for distorting your name.
No problem. It's quite interesting.
yes. And the registrar of documents is going to ascertain through these evidences provided that Stanley Nyarigita is not running away from the former name because he has committed some illegality. Remember, we have in our country here a story going around that somebody ran away from Shimo Latewa and maybe is having a death certificate. So sometimes people do like that. They come from prisons, they come change their names, and then they blend into the public and continue with their illegal activities.
So where do I obtain this deed poll?
Now, the deed poll is obtained from an advocate's office. The advocate will prepare the deed poll for you. However, these forms can also be found readily within the relevant state departments.
Right, fantastic.
Or on the internet.
Right.
So we were proceeding that now, once you have all these documents, remember I mentioned the deed poll, I mentioned the acquaintance declaration, chief's letter, the erroneous birth certificate, and then the parents' national IDs. You take them to the registrar of documents, where the registrar of documents will now book the form, assess, and frank for purposes of paying necessary stamp duty or necessary prescribed fees. Now, once these fees are paid, then you will proceed to the government printers for publication of a notice within the Kenya Gazette for 30 days. Reason being, whoever has an objection from Silas Akiro turning to Silas Okiro will now raise the objections as to why or not the name should not be registered. At the expiry of 30 days, then now you can proceed, take the deed poll plus a cutout of the Gazette notice to the births registration. Births, yes, we are registering a new birth certificate to the birth registration and reapply, acquire a new birth certificate. The former will be revoked, cancelled, and the new one will be issued. Right.
Now you've explained for the deed poll. So I want to understand, even for some of these amendments and for the cost of it, because as much as people are told you need a deed poll, so people are wondering, what's a deed poll? First of all, you've explained it and where they can get it. But then now for the cost of it as well, because even when you take a look at, let's say for Huduma Kenya, their website, they'd say some of the charges there. So I want to take a look at, let's say, even for the deed poll as well as what is here. So the cost for the birth certificate with no amendments, that's 60 Kenya shillings according to Huduma Kenya. Birth certificate with amendments for the child's name is 100 Kenya shillings. Birth certificate with amendments for the parent's name, 100 shillings as well. And then now birth certificate with amendments on the child's and parent's name as well is 140, and they give a timeline for 10 days. So help us understand this. So birth certificate with no amendments for the 60, a birth certificate with amendments. Now for the child's name only 100 bob, and the same 100 bob also for the parent's name. But then if it's for both the child as well as the parent's name, it's 140 cash shillings at the timeline as well, versus the cost as well as for the deed poll.
Remember, let me just make it quite clear here first. For the service that most Kenyans have undertaken at the Huduma Center is usually the renewal or reprinting of their national IDs.
Okay.
Huduma Center will not prepare for you the police abstract. You'll have to go get it and come with it. So theirs is simply to recapture your data and then reproduce there. So when you talk about the rectifications, or rather the reproduction that Huduma Center has posted, that is devoid of the necessary documents. So they presume that when you're coming for this, you come with the necessary documents. And now these accompanying documents, you have to acquire them from the relevant institutions, including at the lawyer's office or lawyer's chambers.
So it's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
So theirs is simply a charge for reproduction of the document.
All right.
So if you want to do a registration of birth at the Huduma Center, then you'll only need to take the accompanying documents and get a birth certificate issued for you. If you want to do an amendment of only the child's name, then those are the charges they have given you. Production of a birth certificate, 60. And then amending the child's name, they've given it 100. And then the child's name and the parents, those are the charges. Yeah. However, the documentations must accompany your request at the Huduma Center.
Right.
Now, but when you come to a lawyer's chambers, this is where everything is going to be done for you. Because at the Huduma Center, they'll even have to send you back to a lawyer. Go get this, go get that, go get that. They send you back to the chief, go get this, go get that. So do not appear at the Huduma Center without the necessary documentation.
All right.
Yes.
So as much as I know we need you as a lawyer, but at what point don't I need you?
Now, at the point you don't need me is where Stanley is chasing me away, which is very interesting. At the point you don't need me is when you have all the documents, and Huduma Center can do it for you at 60 shillings. So come to me, let me prepare all the documents for you, have your full folder, then proceed to Huduma Center. Now, that is the only extra charge you're going to save yourself from.
Right.
The charge of processing those things on your behalf.
Right.
Yes.
So because I know this is one conversation that, again, as I said when you started, everyone has their own story when it comes to this bit of rectifying the birth certificate, either theirs as either the parent or even for the child.
Yes.
Or this child grew up later in years and they really now want to change their name. Maybe they were named after their father and they feel, no, I don't need my father's name here, so I need to change that.
Remember
yes.
Stanley, even at primary, once they have learned female reproductive system and the male reproductive system.
Yeah.
So it begins from Silas Oweti Akiro to Silas O Akiro. You see now that distorts the birth certificate. Goes to high school, innings and outings, then is there, my name is now JB. So that again distorts the birth certificate. At the time this person is going to acquire a national ID with JB Calvins, from Jennifer Njuguna to JB Calvins, whatever the name that is there, you find the child has 2 documents with different names.
I know that you raised that. Let's say you've rectified, and I know some of those questions that we'll be taking a look at shortly. You've rectified the birth certificate, right? Either for this child, or maybe this child grew up later and then they rectified the name on the birth certificate. So how does it affect other certificates that this person has for the KCPE, for the KCSE, and other certificates, probably even in university, that show this person has, let's say, it's Stanley Nyaringita. And then I reached 25 years later, I say, no, I don't like, let's say, Stanley. I love Nyaringita, so I won't change that one. So I say, no, I don't want Stanley. I want some other name, let's say Calvert, for example. How does it affect all other certificates that mirror Stanley Nyaringita? Do I again start to change all those certificates?
No. Whenever you change a name from the name that you have been using for the longest known time, you are actually willing away your rights to those property you might have acquired in the former name. Including the academic credentials, academic documents, including your title deeds, wherever, and everything that had your former name.
Okay.
So at the point of changing your name, if at any given point you need to exercise your rights on the other documents, then you will find most institutions sending you to an advocate to go and get an affidavit. It's an affidavit of confirmation of names.
All right.
That my name formerly was, my name currently is, as appears in the following documents, that I swear this affidavit consciously, knowing that the name so-and-so and the name so-and-so refer to one and the same person who is myself and should be treated as such for all intents and purposes.
All right.
So without this affidavit, the other documents are going to be declared foreign to you. So to avoid these affidavits, I remember there's a case also against the NEC, where NEC was a bit rigid in terms of altering their system, the documentation, the details in their system. Now, in this case, which I'll forward it, maybe for purposes of your online followers, the court determined that NEC should allow members of the public to align their details for purposes of security of their assets, of their property, and exercising of their rights.
Right.
Because now you cannot exercise your right as Stanley Nyarigita if your academic documents indicate Silas Akiro.
Okay. Do you need a witness? Because, I mean, you've told us previously, in most of affidavits, you'd, let's say, need a witness to sign on, let's say, on your behalf on the same.
No, for this one, it's specifically an affidavit of confirmation of name.
Okay.
You will not need a witness in this particular one.
Right.
What you'll do is you'll present to your lawyer the academic credentials, academic documents, present your birth certificate, present your national ID, all those discrepancies within the names, and make sure that the name you are asking your lawyer to include in the affidavit of confirmation of name is actually documented, probably changed within the deed poll, or you've acquired a new national ID. So all those names will have to be harmonized within. They will have to be harmonized within the affidavit, and you'll get one single affidavit referring to those. Remember, once you have the affidavits, you do not throw away the necessary state documents.
Okay. All right. Now it's time to look at people's questions and reviews. It's past, so that gives us, for the next 30 minutes, just taking a look at people's feedback on the same. Back at home, wherever you're watching us from, this is the opportune time to have lawyer Silas Sakiro give you the feedback that you are looking for. Are you probably thinking about changing your name legally on the birth certificate or rectifying some details? As he's saying, you probably called Samuel Atieno, ukaona hapana, Atieno doesn't sit well with me, and you decide to call it Samuel A, for example. Have you thought about all this? Are you thinking about it? You can send in your questions. Preferably, you can actually call us live, 0795 045 864. We'll be having that number pale chini kwa screen yako, and then you can call us live, tell us your name, tell us where you're calling us from, be audible as possible, mute your TV tafadhali, just have it off. Wakili, you can take a look at some feedback here. The MSMS number is 22047. As we take a look at the first one here. So, hello Wakili, my child has 2 birth certificates, courtesy of an error by a relative. Songe nyuma vizuri ndio uone. Courtesy of an error by a relative in procuring the second one. How do I go about it? There it is on the screen.
Now, the law requires that as soon as you realize that your child has 2 birth certificate or registration documents, you need to notify the registrar immediately, because this will lead to what we call forgery. And forgery is a criminal offense within our country. You might be taken up and arraigned in a criminal court, charged, imprisoned, and fined, or fined and left to go home, or imprisoned, and after serving your term, go back home, or charged, imprisoned and fined.
Okay.
So both can happen. So to avoid you getting criminal offense, a criminal charge, you need to notify the registrar almost immediately, or file a case in court to and enjoin the registrar for purposes of ascertaining which document is correct, and for purposes of an order for revoking one of the documents.
All right.
At no given time should you have 2 registration documents at a go.
All right. So that means if you procure the new one, the other one is null and void, and so what do you do with the other one?
It is the registrar to determine which one is null and void.
Okay. Oh, it's not my...
It is not you to determine which one is null and void.
Okay.
You can destroy the first document, yet the first document is the correct one. You can destroy the second one, yet the first document was never registered at all. Maybe it was procured from River Road, And so in the registry documents, it does not appear.
Okay.
So it is for the registrar to determine which one among between the 2 is destroyable, or is liable for being destroyed.
Right. Let's move on and take a look at the next one. Purity kutoka Bungoma. Nataka kujua na kama mtoto wangu ako above 2 years and I want to change her name or rectify the birth certificate.
That is where we discuss now we have to go the deed poll way. If it is about a given omitted letter, you can proceed to the registrar, the registration officers, and they will amend it for you.
Okay.
Just for dropping or adding, not dropping a letter, but adding a letter that was omitted.
Right.
If the name does not, instead of Stanley Nyarigit, it's Stanley Nyarigit. So to add that name, you can just amend.
All right.
But if you want to change a name completely, then you have to go through the deed poll way.
Right. For the amendment bit, now that's where you go to
the amendment
Center.
Not a full name.
Yeah. Just a letter. How much do you need for that?
Of course, the Huduma Center.
Now you go for the Huduma Center.
You can go to the Huduma Center.
Okay.
Or you can simply go to the registration offices. They are usually there within disease county, the local authority offices, where the DO or the DCC, those officers, you'll find them there.
All right. Let's go to the next one and see. Mwingine anasema naitwa Godwell kutoka Embu na hii topic ni noma. I want to know, how do I align my birth certificate and ID? My birth certificate, ID, and school certificates do not match. How do I align them? You've touched on that, but unaweza Godwin hapa pia.
Now, Godwin need to choose between the documents, which one has the correct name. If the ID has the correct name, then have a deed poll to rectify the birth certificate. Then once the birth certificate and the ID are aligned, then proceed to the institution together with an affidavit and the aligned ID and birth certificate, and request for a reproduction of your credentials with an aligned name.
Right.
Then you shall have done that.
Before you forget, you hadn't told us how much for the deed poll.
The deed poll, from a lawyer's perspective. Remember the other time the callers themselves were telling you ranging between 50 to 60K. So it depends on the legal practice. Like what I'll charge is not what Oraro will charge. If Oraro takes that. That is not Dr. Kamino will charge. But there are minimums within the law, which you can check from the Advocates Enumeration Act, Order 2014. But when you come to our offices, we can always have a negotiation between that.
According to the Act, what's the range?
Now, the minimum for a deed poll within the Act, it falls under general documents where you have to agree with your client.
So there's no specific, okay.
But it can't be zero, of course.
But then for someone to actually ndio saidike vizuri, so they go to a lawyer's office and then the lawyer will charge.
The lawyer will prepare the deed poll. Once you've agreed on fees, the lawyer will prepare the deed poll, a declaration for the friend, and you get the chief's letter. The documents will be certified, a certified true copy of the original, and then they are accompanied to the register of documents. The
reason I was asking about the range is because let's say someone might go to lawyer Stanley Nyaringeta and I tell them, give me 100,000. And I say, I was from lawyer Silas Akira, and lawyer Silas said the deed poll is 50,000. So
that's why I don't want to tie myself. That's why I don't want to tie myself, lest you see lawyers here with the blue ribbons. Yes.
Brevin from Huruma anauliza, what age must a child's name be registered?
That's 6 months.
Okay.
Within 6 months, you must register your child for purposes of a birth certificate. Right. After 6 months, you can only do amendments free of charge by walking into the registrar's offices within 2 years. After 2 years, then the rigorous processes of deed poll sets in.
Right. So even as we do this, remember 0795 045864 is the number to call us live. You can have it on the screen. You're, right now, even as you're watching us from wherever you're watching us from, write it down kwa simu. Utupigie sahi and ask all those questions. You're probably asking for yourself, for someone that you know. They're going through a similar thing. They are really seeking to change either their name or just rectifying a part of their name. They're probably called Peter Waweru, but then the birth certificate doesn't have the U at the end of Waweru. And they really want to rectify that. Or they just want to change the whole name, Atoe Waweru itself, and they have a different name, or something else on the same, rectifying the birth certificate, or even legally changing your name. Call us. 0795 045864 is the number. You can also WhatsApp us 0793 267 279. So that is Bravin. Tuangalie ingine. Jesema jinake amesema, good morning TV47. Yes, I wanted to know what I can do when I apply for my daughter's passport and I need to present the dad's ID and I'm unable to get a hold of him. What do I do? Also, how can I add a name to her birth? How can I add a name to her birth certificate?
Now, for purposes of adding, I begin with the addition of the child's name. Add a name. Okay. To add a child's name into the birth certificate depends on how old the child is. The child is below 2 years, can simply walk in and amend. If the child is above 2 years, then you have to visit a lawyer's office, get the deed poll, and the name will be, you will be given a new birth certificate with the added name, provided the added name was included in the deed poll. Now, the dad has refused to take up responsibility. So now there are things here of maybe providing the child's ID. There are questions that must be determined here. Is this person you're calling the dad aware that is the dad? Have you proved to the man that he is the father of the child?
Okay.
Now, if he's not, if he's the father of the child and is denying, then you have to go for, you have to petition the court for parental responsibility, custody and maintenance. Now, during this petition, if the man declines that he is the father, then the court will order for paternity test, a DNA test. If it is confirmed that this is the father, and the child wants to pursue something important, maybe abroad, and the passport has to be procured, then either within the documents will be the father's ID, or you may request the court for an order for the father's ID for purposes of procuring the child's passport.
All right. Let's take a look at the other one. Hi, can you please tell me the procedure for changing ID names like surnames? I know you've touched on this.
Deed poll still, or
Yes.
depending on the age? Or ID, that is 18.
Yes.
ID, that's 18. Deed poll. You have to go through the deed poll.
Something that I believe we hadn't really touched on. Now, I've come to your office. You've told me the range. Let's say tukaelewana nini bei ya jioni tukasema nifanyie na 45,000. 5,000 ikuwe fair. Bargaining kidogo kidogo. So we agreed on that. So I left for all the documents. And just a reminder, so I need the deed poll. Let's say I want to change my surname on the same. So I need the deed poll. Something. Okay. Before, I'm being told to have Esther from Muranga. Okay, so Esther, tukipata Esther from Muranga. So what are the timelines after I've given you all the documents that you need? The kind of the timelines. So you'll be telling us the timelines as we pick this call. Esther kutoka Muranga, habari asubuhi.
Morning.
Good morning. Unaweza paza sauti yako kidogo tu alafu tuongeleshe.
Nilikuwa naulizaje?
Yes.
Bado hujaniweka kwa nini? Kwa TV sioni wakiniuliza.
Uliza. Ni mimi unazungumza na Yes.
Hello, I was asking
Yes.
if you want to add a name, because what happened, there was a way tunabatizwa ukiwa mtu mkubwa kulingana na church regulation, alafu unaongeza another name.
Okay.
So now I was asking, what are you supposed to do? Because I have tried, alafu nikienda follow up nakuta hizo document kama zinapotea. What are you supposed to carry and what are you supposed to do?
Right. So you can engage wakili, I think before ukate simu, so that upate all the questions that you need. Wakili, you've had her question, you can.
Exactly. Her name, please?
Grace.
Grace. Grace, good morning.
Okay, ni kama amekata, you can just engage her. Yes.
Adding a surname, maybe you have acquired your husband's name. Of course, right now, it's not as compulsory as it were during the colonial eras. But if you wish to take up your husband's name and add it onto yours, that is a change of name. You have to go through the deed poll. Now, she's asking that she has all the documents, but whenever she follows up, she's told the documents are missing. That is her main concern. Now, these missing documents is now an issue with the persons handling these documents at the given state offices. To some of them, there have been so many cries, and let me not be crucified because I really do not have confirmed information on this.
Okay.
But there have been so many cries that if you don't tip them, they put your documents at the dustbin.
Okay.
Is there somebody?
Yes, there's another caller from Muranga nikupeleke all the way to Kiambu. Catherine, habari ya asubuhi?
Njema.
Yes, unaongea na Stanley Nyaringita hapa kwa studio. Uko na swali, uko na maoni?
Yes, I have a question. Actually, out of experience, Okay, can I engage Wakili or
Yes,
I
yes.
ask the question?
Yes, you can engage Wakili. He is listening to you.
Yes, Catherine, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You may ask your question now.
Okay, it's out of experience.
Yes.
I had a baby in 2017.
Yes.
And then on the birth notification, it was in a private hospital.
Yes.
On the birth notification, I did not indicate the dad's name. But when going for the birth certificate, I had already discussed with the dad, and he told me to include the name.
Yes.
Okay, now what happened? When I went to get the birth certificate, the registrar where I went, they told me that I cannot, despite the father having filled the forms with the names of his own name and everything, they declined to put his name. They told me to go for an affidavit and come with his ID and blah, blah. And that is how his name was left out. Of course, it wasn't a good experience. To this day, he's always asking, mbona ulitoa jina ya mtoto wangu kwa nini?
I understand, Catherine, what you might have gone through.
Yes, you can imagine the strain. Okay, we, despite the fact we are not together, but he still supports the child. To this day, he pays school fees, he caters for the child. But that thing of now, when I explained to him that we need to go to Akili's office and have him swear, he's like, why should I swear? And yet this child is mine. You know, he has never agreed to that procedure, yet the blame is on, he put the blame on me. He did not understand what they told me at the registrar's office.
Oh, good.
So I may want to know, now the child is 7 years old. I may want to know before now before the procedure of academic certificates now becomes a big issue.
Exactly. Now, Catherine, first of all, we must commend your child's father for taking up responsibilities, the name not being included in the birth certificate notwithstanding. However, maybe the way the registrar or the person who sent you back for the document expressed himself or herself to you might have been the cause of all these issues. There are people within these offices who do not know what we call courtesy. If you were explained to in a more courteous manner, you would have transferred the same courtesy to your husband, and he would have understood and accompanied you to the registrar. Now, that notwithstanding, Catherine, remember there are those people who steal children. And maybe they go and sell organ trafficking, child trafficking. So the registrars always have to be very cautious on whomever they are attaching this child to. If that information was not given at birth, then there has to be verification documents to accompany the name that is being included here. Now, usually it is required that the mother and the father accompany together, they go together to the registrar's office for an interview, along with an affidavit indicating or giving reasons why despite him being the father, his name was omitted from the birth certificate at birth. If the registrar is satisfied with the reasons on the affidavit, then you will do what we call re-registration. So the old birth certificate with excluding the father will be cancelled, and the new birth certificate will be given to you. Now, this one does not require a deed poll. It is not a registration that requires you to make maybe some notice on the Gazette. It is simply a singular affidavit together with your marriage certificate. If no marriage certificate, then affidavit of marriage, and then the documentation.
We're not married.
You're not married, then maybe
Yes.
if you're not married and it is really not a mandatory that you provide proof of marriage, but in case you claim before the registrar that there is marriage for purposes of those who have that line of discussion, they'll have to prove the same. But if you're not married, it's simply an affidavit by the father confirming the paternity, taking responsibility. Then you go to the registrar's office, do some little interview, and then re-registration will be approved. The old one will be cancelled, the new one will be issued. So the documents the registrar requested you to accompany are legal document. The information was correct. It is only that I may not know the mood in which the information was passed to you. So you need to visit a lawyer's office to prepare for you the documents, and then you go back to the registrar.
Okay, when finally we go now, can we go to a lawyer's office? We get the details, the documents done.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And then after that, can I present that to the registrar, or still we have to accompany all of us to the registrar of births?
If you go alone, Catherine, you'll still be taken back. They'll say you've maybe crafted the affidavit.
Really?
So you have to go, the two of you. The registrar requires that you present yourself, the two of you, to before the registrar.
So both parents.
Yeah, both parents, for a very small interview.
Does it have to be in the same registrar's office where I took where the original birth certificate was done, or can we go to any other office? Because the dad works in Nairobi.
Okay, there are two that I would recommend.
Yes.
Where you took the birth, or at the National Registry.
National Registry, that is in Nairobi.
Yeah, that is in Nairobi.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, have a good day.
Catherine, because najua unanisikiza bado, before ukate, text us kindly on 22047. You can text us right now, then we will, or on our WhatsApp number, 0793267279, and then we'll pick your number, and then we'll give Wakili for more details.
All right, sawa. Yeah. I use the WhatsApp number.
Or preferably 22047, our SMS number.
All right, sawa.
Yes, and that again all goes to the other viewers watching us this morning for all these questions. But then speak of questions, because she's asked the kind of questions that I was to ask you before we picked that call. First of all, before you even get to the timelines, which kuna mtu anauliza hapa, your process yote, and I give you the deed poll and all that. So what's the whole process? And umeielezea vizuri even for the parents. Now, for this one, hey TV47, uliza lawyer, after how long can a child's birth certificate be registered? And asema asking for a friend. And even as you answer this, because now we have about dakika chache kidogo, yes, we have, I think, 8 minutes.
Okay.
So getting into the timelines.
Okay.
Even for the timelines, after the deed poll, maneno ya court, what are the timelines that the viewer needs to know, the specific timelines for the same?
Now, we had indicated that registration must happen within 6 months. And registration in Kenya is mandatory, pursuant to legal notice number 7 of 1990. Registration of births, of course, there was 1956 first, then 1960, and then we came to 1990 with the change of law. With the registration of births, 6 months. After 6 months, but within 2 years, you can amend. Then there is what we call late registration. That one can happen at any age. You can take up late registration of births at any age. But those who live along the borders of the country, they are always vetting.
Right.
The Sakola.
So even as we connect Roy kutoka Kajiado, the kind of, let's say after I've picked this deed poll, how long?
The period.
Yes,
okay.
the kind of period.
Okay.
So let's pick this call fast. Roy, habari ya Kajiado? Mnaendeleaje huko Kajiado?
Tuko fiti.
Ni jua ama baridi kidogo?
Baridi tu.
Pia hapa Nairobi kwa hivyo. Yes.
I have a quick question to Wakili. And I'm very happy he's here to have this discussion.
Yes.
My question is, now I did a wedding about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I did the planning and I did a whole event, yeah?
Okay.
But when we were doing the registration to do the interview, we found the names were not matching, the birth certificate name and the ID name.
Okay.
So now if I go and get the deed pool as the Wakili is suggesting,
yeah.
Should I get a deed pool with my wife having my name, or should I get a deed pool with our individual names first, and then we register the marriage, and then we get our names together?
Thank you so much. Didn't capture the name.
Yeah, Roy.
Roy.
Yes.
Roy, good morning once again.
Morning, Wakili.
Now, I know there are always those predicaments, particularly at the registrar of marriages and the registrar at the immigration offices. They do not take affidavits of confirmation of names. You must align your documents to go back there. Now, it will depend on you. If you want to avoid the hurdles of later having another deed poll, you can do a pre-wedding deed poll, aligning your names. But remember, if the name on the birth certificate is different from the name on the ID and also different from the name on the name that you are taking up, you're going to have 3 conflicting names here, of which now you're going to abolish all the documents and acquire new documents. What I mean is this: if your name on the birth certificate is BC, the name on the ID is DE, and then the name you're acquiring is FH, then remember there is no name FH on either document.
Yeah.
So then once you get the deed poll, you have to get a new birth certificate with FH, a new ID with FH.
After the affidavit, as you say.
After the affidavits and the deed poll and kila kitu. Yeah. Once it is gazetted,
okay.
And now you're going to do rectification. So you have to be given records containing the name as per the deed poll. So to avoid numerous, because ID and births are different offices. To avoid getting back and forth from these offices, you'd rather take a name from one document. Either take a name from the birth certificate and then do a deed poll to change the ID, or take a name as per the ID, do a deed poll to change the birth certificate.
Okay.
Now, if your wife would wish to take up your name after the wedding, then your wife also can do a deed poll picking up the other name. Remember, if you do not get married, that does not mean that because she has taken your name through a deed poll, she is now your wife.
Okay.
If you change your names pre-wedding and then you end up breaking up, not getting married, that acquisition of the new name does not mean marriage. So you have to actualize the marriage after the change of name.
All right. We have about like a minute actually to wrap it up. I can take a look at some comments on Facebook as well. Ron is still Ron. Ron. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a follow-up.
Yes.
Okay, I've understood that process. I have just another question. So the names in the birth certificates are not the same as the names in the ID, but it's only one name that is in the birth certificate that is not in the ID. Should I just go ahead and register the one name in the birth certificate onto the ID?
Okay, you check, Roy, which one is correct? Which one do you want to use? The one in the ID or the birth certificate?
Okay.
All of them are my names, yeah? Only
but
that
but
what
the
I've been
order
using in school, as what you've been saying, the names changed.
now the order.
But now one name that is in the one name, I only have 2 names in the birth certificate,
Okay.
and 4 names in the ID.
Also,
So
you
one
want to
name
add
that-
other 2 in the birth certificate, right?
I wanted to add that one name that is in the birth certificate onto the ID.
Onto the ID.
Yeah.
So if I get you clear, your ID is going to have 5 names.
Yes, if that was possible. Yeah, that is exactly how it should have been. Yeah.
Okay, then, Roy, you'll have to swear a deed poll.
And briefly, kindly, okay, yeah.
Okay. Get a deed poll and include the name you want to include in the ID as your new name in the deed poll. Then proceed to the registrar of births offices and get a new birth certificate with the name in the deed poll, and then proceed to the ID department and get a new ID with the 5th name which you added as per the deed poll. I don't know whether you caught me?
I've understood you quite clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roy. Salimia to Kajiado Paliuko. Right. And wakili, my director has been gracious enough kuniongezea dakika kama 1.5.
Oh.
Anaitwa Nicholas, ni kama ataka kubadilisha jina kwa Nick pia the question of the day is, have you ever thought about rectifying your birth certificate or legally changing your name? I'll be going through them real quick, watching live from Kitale. I don't have and I need one so that I can acquire a passport. How can someone get it? And John James, Cheptoi, Denina, yes, what's the procedure? Shivachi General, mine is about the ID and NHIF photo. Ningekuwa na uwezo wallahi ningebadilisha. Mine got lost when I was 16, I'm 27 and I need to apply passport. Can someone know how to get one? And some EL. Elizabeth Mugo, yes, I have been willing to change my name. Baba Adrian, in fact, I have that problem. And Melody Mukami, mine have parents' names, mistakes, and need to rectify this. As nikianza nilisema, everyone has their own journey. So, okay, naambia tuko na simu ingine. Wanjiru kutoka Rongai. Wanjiru, habari asubuhi?
Hello?
Yes, hello, Wanjiru. You're talking to Stanley Nyaringita hapa kwa studio?
I'm on the TV.
Yes, you're on the TV. Unazungumza na Stanley.
Sioni wakiongea.
Unazungumza na Stanley hapa kwa studio.
Oh, morning.
Yes, good morning. Kindly mute your TV or have it off and then talk to us.
Okay, thank you for the discussion.
Yes.
It's very important. Now, before I forget, can you please tell Waki to display his number, cell phone number?
Okay, I hope
and
switch
display
off.
his contact number so that we can talk to him later on also.
All right, fantastic.
Okay, now, I was saying,
yes,
there is this name I wanted to add. The ID does not have that name, and it was explained to me the process, the depot, and all that.
Okay.
My professional certificate does not carry with the ID.
Okay.
Because I wanted to ask. Now I started the process.
Right.
And when I normally follow up, I find that, there are people who are not serious and I don't want to mention where.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to ask Wakili now, do I have to start afresh?
Right.
And what are the repercussions if I just forget about it? Please, let me talk to him. Let me hear what he's saying.
Okay. All right. Wanjiru, you can just talk to him because the lawyer is listening to you.
Yes, Wanjiru, good morning.
Morning.
I got your question. You want to add a name? You want to know the implication or repercussions if you...
Yeah, I want to add. Actually, I wanted, and I even started the process.
All right. For you to add a name, Wanjiru, then you need to go to a lawyer to prepare for you something called a deed poll.
The process.
Yes, you'll have a friend who has known you for at least 10 years do a declaration and then a letter from the chief. And then the document that contains your name currently minus the one you want to add. And then the lawyer will prepare those documents, take them to the registrar, they'll be registered. And then a public notice will be issued on the Kenya Gazette. After 30 days, you can now proceed to acquire new registration document with the new name. having included the name you want to add. Now, the repercussions, if you just leave it, if all the documents align as currently they are without the name you want to add, there is no repercussion. But if they do not, if all the names do not align, then maybe if you want to travel abroad, the immigration department will want you to align. Or if you want to contract a marriage, the marriage department will want you to align. But if not, then you'll just get an affidavit of name to confirm that A, B, C, D, and D, C, E refer to Catherine, refer to one and the same person, and then you'll be done. There'll be not much repercussion.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And how long does it take? The process?
Now, the process, we normally give a period of 3 months to 6 months based on the backlog, but ideally it's supposed to take 2 weeks.
If I'm aggressive following up.
Yes, 2 weeks to do the registration.
2 weeks to 1 month.
And then 1 month for gazette notice. So around 1.5 months or 2 months, but we normally give a period of 3 months to 6 months.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Can you please display your contact number?
Yes.
Yes, sure, I will.
Where are you? Where is the office?
Yeah, sure. I will display after this the show. Just keep on watching.
And 10,
The contact, physical address, and all that.
Exactly.
Yes, and 10 before Ukate, also you can hold on to the line. We'll pick your number. The producers will be picking your number,
Okay,
and then we'll share it to the lawyer.
0700.
Okay.
Are you writing?
Yes. Okay. Unaweza just text us on our WhatsApp number. Ndio pia si lazima kila Mkenya apate namba yako.
Okay, please, the WhatsApp, that one.
Yes, on our WhatsApp number.
That's the WhatsApp, 793.
Yes, 93267279. Text us your number, and then Wakili will have it.
Please.
Yes, thank you very much, Wanjiru kutoka Rongai up, and so many other callers would really love to engage with us. Exactly. For your last thoughts, due to time, tell us your number, your contacts, and then we wrap it up. Tafadhali.
As a parting shot, Stanley, first of all, make sure that as your child grows, they grow with one seamless name, so that you avoid all this. And also remember, once you change your name, remember to change it in all other documents, title deed, academics, and everything to streamline.
Okay.
We operate as Akiro and Associates Advocates. We are based at Kipro Center. That is just adjacent to One Africa Place, Westlands. We are on the 2nd floor. You can find our details on our website, www.akirolaw.com. akirolaw.com.
Okay. Right.
www.akirolaw.com. Our telephone number is 0768 229 878. Or you can just reach me directly, 0717 653 746, and we'll help one another. Thank you so much for the show today. Once again, I think we now wrap it up.
It's definitely, it was part 2. This was due to public demand, having these conversations, because, well, there's so many Kenyans who are in this predicament in one way or another, and will continue, having these conversations, Akina Wanjiru, Akina Roy, and so many who've talked to us on calls, and I'm being told, kuna wengine wanaendelea kupiga. Do this if you're calling us right now. You can, 0793-267-279 is our WhatsApp number. Ya lawyer, unaweza rudia tafadhali tena, ndio mtu anapiga sahi aipate.
0717 653 746.
Yes. Slowly again.
0717 653 746.
Fantastic. And Wakili, because people are going through a lot in terms of legal aid, you can also talk to us and tell us, what are you going through?